into the future. My name is Zach Gardner, the Chief Architect at Keyhole Software, and I have a very, very interesting guest with me today on my program called Next Level. It's a videocast really geared towards the next generation of technical leaders, people that have fewer gray hairs than I do, people that are trying to find their way through this amazing landscape, somewhat uncertain landscape at times, of technology, of software development. Do they want to be architects? Do they want to go the staff engineering route? Or do they want to put on the suit and be part of the business, be the bane of every developer's existence? I don't know. I don't have the answers. But I do have a group of people that are willing and able and very insightful on what their career journey was like. What are the things that they have gone through in their time behind the QWERTY keyboard, and maybe what recommendations they have for the next generation of technical leaders. The person I'm talking with is the one, the only Jesse Tayler, Chief Technology Officer at TruAnon. I remember that right?
That's right. We say it's
Awesome.
like QAnon, but it's the opposite.
Very, very good. Yeah, that's QAnon. That's a very different podcast from this one. So before we begin, just a reminder to our more litigious audience members, the views and opinions expressed in this program, the views and opinions of the participants who do not reflect their employer, their trade organizations, any yacht clubs that they are affiliated with, which I don't know if you are, I'm not, but it's okay. This is just two dudes. We're just talking. We're just having a good time. That's all. So to get us started off with, Jesse, why don't you give those in the audience kind of your background? Where did you start programming? Maybe what was your first program? People often like to, kind of reminisce on the glory days. What are some of the interesting projects that you've worked on? And then that'll kind of get us teed up for the second question that I have for you.
Excellent. Yes. Well, I got a very early start in computers, basically by being one of those electronics kids in my generation. It was right at the crux where integrated circuits were beginning to be cheaply available, especially if your mother happens to work at MIT. There were chips that you could liberate from certain university projects, and in fact, there were people at the university who I now realize are famous, AI people, Marvin Minsky, and as a kid, I had no idea, and that probably served me well. Um, but I remember understanding sort of engineering things and electronics things. And at MIT, I got my hands on really the first sort of terminal, and this would be one of these big printers with the green lined paper that is very wide, going through with the little holes on the sides of it, and these things would just roll onto the floor endlessly. And I looked at this device, and they let me open it, and I looked inside, and I pressed the letter G, and the little printhead, a bit of a dot matrix printhead, would roll out of the way so that you could see what you were writing. And then it would come over and it would print the G, and then it would roll away. And I was like, there's not enough wires, right? Like, I looked at this and I was like, how could this thing possibly work? This is total magic. You know what I mean? I was stunned, and I still remember that very moment. And I thought to myself, if you could do that, I saw that the keyboard had all the wires went into a little integrated circuit. This had enough memory to keep track of 8 or 10 keystrokes, and it would kind of pipe them into the serial clock when the opportunity of the computer aroused to get that data. And it would just boil down to a handful of wires. You could have this plug in between the keyboard. And, I thought these things are the most profoundly interesting thing. Electronics is fine, but these machines, I want to know. And I think for a lot of computer people, there are so many smart engineers, and they love writing code and they really love all that goes with it. And I don't really know if I'm one of those. Not only are some of these folks a lot more talented in engineering, my skills are very good, but there are some people who are just profoundly good. I realize that I have a need for the end result, right? I don't like debugging. That thinking that hard is not all that much fun. Frankly, I'd rather play golf. Um, it's just, but there is this drive that comes in some personalities, especially those with the entrepreneur's disease. And I think even as a young kid, um, I looked at that situation and I thought to myself, I want to make the computer do things. I want to make it do things that I want. And I don't want to have to explain to somebody else or listen to their explanation as to why it can't be done. Therefore, I will learn it down to the bits and bytes, the chips and the assembly language, and I'm going to figure out how compilers work. And really had no ambition in startups or building commercial software. First of all, I was too young to understand any of those kinds of ideas. Um, but also, it just wasn't my motivation. So I think my personal story, both in terms of being the kind of engineer that I am, and now in my 50s, I can say that I've spent my entire career doing early stage software invention startup stuff, trying to make new things. And I think it's a, an unusual origin story, but one that's really kind of a lot of fun at this juncture. I realized that generation kind of came and went, and my children grow up with iPads uh, and have a wholly different worldview. So as an inventor, I was blessed to be in a generation where I thought all the good stuff had been invented. But it turns out, there was at least one career's worth of more stuff to make. So that's how I got my start. Fascination.
Very cool. It echoes, I think, pieces of what I recall from early in my career. I think the first computer that we had in my house, it didn't come from MIT. It came from, a Gateway store, if I had to remember right. And I remember
Mhm.
my pops showing it to me, kind of walking me through because he had used them before at work, but this was like our first home computer. And I don't know why. I vividly remember this, but it has stuck with me ever since. The screensaver, for whatever reason, realizing that I can right click, go to, I don't know, display settings, change the screensaver. To me, like that was the light bulb moment. It was like, I have the agency. I have, if I can just figure out how to communicate with this machine correctly, I have the ability to be able to actualize changes that I have in my brain that I can then see represented on the screen. So for you, it was the letter G. For me, it was the screensaver. I don't know why. There always seems to be that origin story, behind all of us. But one thing that you said that stuck with me too, as you were talking, was all the have has every problem been solved? Like when you got into programming, I'm sure there was that, mythology of, oh, 10 or 16 megs. Why do we need that much RAM? You know, like we could do everything we need to in 8. And I was actually talking with one of our co-founders about when they used to have to install software on floppy disks. You know, you couldn't deploy it through the web. You couldn't have, you know, over the air deployments. Everything had to be done over a floppy disk. And we were like, how big were those? I think they were the 512 kilobyte ones, which like today, I don't know if I could even have an image that can be stored on there. So the folly I think that we often get ourselves into is that all lands have already been uncovered. You know, all problems have already been solved. 2 years ago, something like Chat GPT and generative AI, no one had any semblance the amount of disruption that that would cause, or even what the novel problems that it could solve were. So I always appreciate talking with other people that, you know, that get that the best problems are the ones that we have yet to solve, and maybe the ones we have yet to even conceptualize of. So I'm curious if you can give the audience a little bit of background on maybe what are some of the interesting projects that you've worked on. Do you have any patents to your name? Because I don't, and I always like to talk to people that do. You know, like what are some just really cool stuff that you've worked on over your career?
Yeah, you make a good point, and I won't dwell on it too much before answering your actual question, but yeah, I can't remember the guy's name, but you know, email was invented, at least the one that transfers between computers. The at sign is really what makes email work. It is a username at a computer name, and it it is the simplest invention. And uh, as a kid, I viewed that as the last great frontier of software invention, having no inkling about, you know, the web or the app store or any of these other important things that would come very shortly. I felt like I'm about 10 years younger than the Bill Gates, Steve Jobs generation, and felt like, you know, I was just born here in the Upper West Side of New York City. It's not Silicon Valley. I, you know, was 10 years late. Here, email has already been invented. You know, it's all over. Um, but of course, you know, that turned out not to be true. And today my calling card moniker is, you know, App Store Inventor. It's a funny, ironic, interesting story. We invented that product on the same computer that the web was being invented on at the very same time. And these two inventions have a lot in common. The web is there to freely transfer information between computers, and the App Store is there to protect the rights of artists online. And these two things we now see together marry so beautifully, and really are kind of the legs on which the mobile computing world of the 21st century stands on 20th century inventions. Of course, the guy who invented the web has been knighted by the Queen. Personally, I'm still waiting. I think Kamala Harris is gonna call, and so, but you know, in all seriousness, it was not the kind of thing where I should say we understood what we were doing, and we truly believed that the future would be electronic distribution. This was not our question. Um, but you have to understand the way people would react to it. Microsoft was just becoming very big. Win95 was on the horizon already. Windows 3.1 had just crushed WordPerfect and Lotus 123. And the message was to sell software, which was previously worthless, right? IBM doesn't sell software, they sell you hardware, right? And they give you the software because people don't want to buy nothing. Okay, they want a box, they want a disc, they want a book. Okay, and so you walk around and you tell people there's a lot of efficiencies and advantages in a purely digital solution. You're taking something digital, you're putting it on a floppy disk so you could put it on a shelf and people can take it home and install it themselves, right? That seems normal. That's what everybody does. We drive to a store called Egghead and you buy software. Um, However humiliating that may seem, that's the way we did it and we liked it. So a lot of times, you innovate and you build things, and most of your time is spent communicating, right? How do you get people to understand a future vision that doesn't exist? These things are very easy to see in retrospect, but sometimes very difficult to convince your peers. I'll give you an even more humorous and awful example. This wasn't my invention, but I was one of the early geo expert engineers at a company called CyberSlice. So that gives you an idea of exactly what era this company was formed, right? Like Terminator 1. And uh, CyberSlice's business was to deliver pizza online, geo-coordinated pizza. In other words, you would put in your address, we would understand where you were physically on the planet, and we would find restaurants nearby, and we would understand their menu. And you could actually pick a pizza with toppings and say go. This had been shown in a movie, rather embarrassing. People laughed at the scene where the character ordered a pizza online. The founders of the company literally saw the movie and decided this might be possible. But the amount of money that it took, there was no Yahoo Maps, there was MapQuest.
Mm.
So there was a bit of online maps, but we couldn't use any of that. We had to buy the geo data from the source, which was like $1 million a year to rent. It was a preposterously expensive organization with large numbers of extremely skilled engineers building out fantasy level stuff. So now you might think, well, you guys had Grubhub, and boy, like the whole world is like delivering, right? VCs must have been all over you. Well, now this isn't my thing to pitch, but I'm often in the room. And just imagine trying to sell this thing. Okay, we're in the room with a real VC and we're going through this thing and showing how all this technology works. And this guy's getting irritated. This is really a lot of technology and expense, and the numbers are incredible. And we make like 50 cents on every delivery. He is just like, you people are so stupid. I don't even know how to explain to you. And so he starts giving that, arm on the back of the chair and this kind of holding his face. And at one point he just interrupts. And he says, wait, let me show you an invention. Okay? It's called the telephone. Okay? Here's one right here. Oh, look, I pick it up. Hello, Bill's Pizza? Yeah, I want a pizza. Can you send, when the guy comes to me, I give him $10 at the door. Okay, that's the problem you're trying to solve. I don't think there's a problem. And I think this invention's already been here before. Needless to say, we didn't do real well on that particular venture pitch, but that's a lot. That's almost all of what you hear from people when you're shepherding something to market that is worthy. It's almost by definition. And frankly, I'm glad I wasn't really the one doing that demo. I got to demo the App Store to Steve Jobs, and he was like, I like it, and walked away. That was, so we didn't have a lot of interaction. He got the idea, and I didn't have to, have a real nicely honed demo with fancy words. I took him through the 20-year-old's engineer's idea of why he should want to do electronic distribution. This guy selling the geo cyber slice stuff was a pro, a pitch master. We had backing, we had seriousness, we had millions of dollars already, and yet we were still laughed out of the room. So so yeah, that's a lot of my success stories are muddled with failure, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I think that is one of the true marks too of a senior software engineer. I've seen some people that have been somehow promoted from a junior to senior with 1.5 years of experience. And I always kind of wonder, the true measure of a senior should be measured how many times you brought down production. It should be measured in how many mistakes that you've made, because you get to understand and have a much better appreciation for the complexities that are just inherent in our field. There's no way to predict all possible variables. So don't even go through that futile exercise of trying. There's no way to appreciate how something that you spend, days and weeks, hours just slaving over will be just received by someone and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool, that's fine. But something that you spend maybe a few minutes on, they're like, oh, wow, this is totally revolutionary. There's just no way to appropriately explain that to people that are outside of the field. And the cyber slice thing, I love the name, by the way, like A+ on the marketing for that. It got me thinking about one of the use cases that I've heard about for generative AI, which, this wouldn't be a video cast in 2024 if generative AI didn't at least make a cameo appearance.
Absolutely.
In the future, which might even be Q3 2024, there's the potential of having consumer grade conversational AI that allows us to, as a consumer, interact with other humans, but not have to do it directly. So you would have an app on your phone. Maybe it's called CyberSlice. Don't know if that name's still trademarked, but you'll just tell it, order me a pizza, and it needs to be pepperoni, and it needs to be gluten free. I don't know why. I don't know why you'd subject yourself to that. And just, get it here in 30 minutes. And the conversational AI will call using that, very futuristic technology that the VP or whatever his title was talking to you with, and it will do audio to audio translation, and it will actually have a chat with a person on the other end, giving them your address, giving them it'll say, you have to pay upon receipt, because you probably don't want to give over your credit card number to some, conversational AI, but at least your address, what you want for your order. And then, if there's no anomalies, no exceptions, it can then just hang up the phone and, it's talk to someone. So the crazier part too is maybe that pizza place will then have a conversational AI that interacts with the people that are calling. So we might actually have a human talking to an AI. That AI talks to another AI, and then that other AI puts into the point of sale system what the actual order is. So the only pieces where you actually need a human are to describe the need. And then on the other side, once the need has been translated into the system, be able to actually fulfill the need, either through baking the pizza, delivering the pizza, yada yada yada. So that's I'm curious if there's other maybe generative AI use cases that you've heard about or you thought about, things that maybe aren't getting enough airtime other than, CyberSlice, trademark.
Yeah, I think there's a clear capacity of AI to do certain things that structured programming doesn't do. One example that just jumps out in my mind, or two really. One is when we used to shop at Blockbuster Video and we're just able to sort of glance around and take in enormous amounts of data. We've fallen to a keyword search, and however good that is on Netflix, you know it's crap, right? Everybody knows it's crap. When you look for a piece of furniture, most of the time you can get the dimensions, but geez, like, what does it really mean? And it's hard to actually see like how those measures conform to the space that you need to fit that couch in. It's really hard for you to look at the couch and see if it fits. In fact, half the time when you order Amazon, it comes in, it's about a third the size you thought it was, isn't it? You're like, I didn't know they made these this small. So I think there's so many advantages in AI providing that cooperative assistance, that keyword search will either be dramatically changed or perhaps just unimportant in most cases. It's much better to say, I don't like green and deco is out, and have it understand. The interesting aspect of that scenario is, of course, now Amazon is going to provide you with a very smart AI to help you find that couch, but they're also going to guide you to the couch that they'd prefer you to buy, as they do with keywords. So that's fine, but then AI could be, let's say, rather persuasive. Yes. AI might ask me things. I might give it information that maybe I didn't realize what it's doing with it. So when I interact with Amazon's AI, I better have my AI be doing the work, and my AI better be trained to defend my privacy and my interests. Okay, now I have a funny story, and then I'll follow that up with something that I'm sure will give you some nightmares. But a funny cartoon I recently saw is with an email communication where the gal says, "Look, AI can take my bullet point and it expands it to a whole email as though I had written it." And then the receiver says, "Look, AI takes this giant email and reduces it to the one bullet point that I need." And however funny that is, that's what I just explained in the Amazon, right? We just took a straw of a pipe between us, right? And we expanded it on both ends using what is potentially very expensive AI services. How nice for the big corporate AI giants. So let's take this one step further. Here's my watch. It seems to listen to all the I say because somehow it picks out things. What if AI grows up with you? What if AI knows every word that you uttered the first time you knew it? What if AI could not just speak like you, but could speak like you as though you were 5? At the time you're 5, just like you're 5. What if AI could give your class, write your book, answer questions? Well, sure, it will be able to. Now, what when I go to date? Why would I bother going on to 1 or 2 dating sites? You know where I'm going. And have a few conversations when my AI could get on every dating site. My AI could be trained to look for certain qualities that I may be interested in. Now, that may be a little scary when we think of me as a person dating whose intention is to meet other good people. What if I am a fraudster? What if I have trained my AI to seek suckers? What if I have trained my AI to divert your attention to trick you, to manipulate you. Again, Amazon was just using it to influence you a bit. Take that to the next level, and suddenly AI is damn dangerous. It could influence you in ways that only a persuasive salesperson could, but with hidden intentions that you don't understand or know how to predict. When you and I interact here, even on this video call, there's a lot of context that we get. You trust certain things about my nature, my background, my context. AI lives in another universe. You can't touch it. You can't catch it. You can't even figure out how it's thinking what it's thinking. So I think it's interesting to imagine a very short generation from now where there's haves and have-nots. If I can pay for the best AI, well, I'll be getting the best dates. I'll make better investments. I'll have better medical advice. I'll have better job opportunities, right? I will have a more productive and happy life by paying for AI that you cannot afford.
Hmm. I've
Ugh.
never heard that take before. A little scary, but
Sorry.
I I don't know. I think you make a good point. And the Amazon AI is actually interesting that you brought that up. I saw something last week, I think. Someone was able to, and I actually looked it up. It's still in beta as of the recording of this March 19th. It
Right.
was still in beta. And for whatever reason, my account has not yet been selected to have that feature flag turned on. But someone was able to convince it to be able to give them a discount. It was like a 7% discount on the
Oh,
MacBook
right.
Pro, which I don't know. I was gonna ask it, could you give me 100% discount and see if they would honor it? I mean, one of the airlines, maybe it was like Canadian
Yeah.
Air. I feel
Yep.
like it was one of Air Canada. Someone was able to convince their generative AI to be able to give them over their chatbot 100% discount on their airfare, and the courts ruled that you have to honor that because it is a representative of your company, and it is just as legally binding as if a customer service rep, a human being like you or I, gave them 100%. But there is a piece of it that gives me hope, and it's that Amazon's AI for recommendations, after I buy a toilet seat, it invariably asks me, "Hey, we've just seen that you bought a toilet seat. Do you want to see these 5 other toilet seats?" And it's like, no, I just got a toilet seat. Maybe you want to show me toilet brushes. Maybe you want to show me like toilets. Maybe you want to show me toilet paper. But if I've already bought a MacBook Pro, I don't need you to recommend me other MacBook Pros. So that there is hope. We're not extinct. We have not been made superfluous, at least as of this recording. So to kind of wrap this up, I'm curious if you can provide recommendations for what are some of the things that you thought about as you were going through your career journey, as you were going from the zygote of a developer that looked at, the letter G on a keyboard through the different evolutionary stages? Like, what made you want to become a CTO instead of a manager, instead of, staying on the individual contributor route? Kind of where was your head at as you went through this journey?
You know, I would like to take a lot more credit for directing my career than reality. You can almost tell by my origin story that I somewhat stumbled into a career of even being a software computer scientist. I was going to be in the band, you see. Turns out that you need all kinds of talent for that I just didn't have, but it turns out people would pay me for software. So this was something that my girlfriend at the time alerted me that apparently beer is not pay, and that in fact I was not a professional musician. I was a computer scientist. This was literally a true story and shocked me. Um, so I think I ended up sort of taking on that CTO role partially because of the maturity of the industry and my age. Even at a young age, I knew more about computers than most people. Being able to have access through my mom's a English professor at MIT, so not cool, but gave me access that young people, I'm in grade school. You don't get access to computers like that at my age without something odd like that. And I think because my personality is a little different than a lot of deep thinking engineers, I was able to talk with the engineers, work with the engineers, build and invent with the engineers. I liken things to the band. You go through a period where you practice your instrument until your fingers bleed, but then you come to a point where you can just stand up and play, and suddenly it becomes much more productive and more creative, right? Suddenly there's a sound. The same thing happened in software. I got to a point where it was like orchestrating. And typically the team was like, hey, send Jesse to the board meeting, And I began to learn how to communicate to non-technical stakeholders, and found that because I'm a regular kind of person in my everyday life, but also have this experience and depth of engineering, I was able to train sort of the two halves of my brain to cooperate a little better. And that's a lot of what good CTOs do. They can inspire the engineers, they can attract great engineers, they can protect the principles of engineering in ways that non-technical people aren't going to be able to really understand. And you need to be able to present confidence to non-technical stakeholders, transparency, visibility, so that they have comfort looking into a black box. Let's not forget, software is invisible, right? I can't see it either. We design a construction that we all agree looks like what's in there. And this is the part that CTOs really are getting their head around, because that's the part that communicates to the customer. That's the part that communicates to the designers, to the engineers, to the marketing people, right? Everyone who has a stake and interest in the outcomes of software production, who is not in that engineering team, and that's most of the world. So it's a very tricky job. I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. I clearly come at it from the hands-on experience, I'm with you in the trenches sort of thing. I've seen people who go to school, and come out and learn how to manage technology and engineers, and it's a very different way to do it, but some of those people are also successful at being CTOs. So I don't know, what the recipe is on the other side. I can only describe how I ended up getting there.
No, that's good to hear. I mean, I too love the marriage of technology solving business problems, being able to understand technically how to set up large architectures, understanding on the other side what it is that we're actually trying to solve, doing things like ride-alongs and shadowings. I mean, I too, like you, I love living in the trenches. There's no place I would rather be. So, Jesse, thank you so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it. This was really fun. This was a good time.
Absolutely, Zach. I would love to talk geek with you anytime. And hey, this is the year to chat about AI. So whether or not we know what we're talking about, we're going to talk anyway, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I definitely next time I make it out to the city, I definitely owe you a chicken over rice. Or I hope you're a white sauce and a red sauce kind of guy, because that's the kind of guy I am.
Come to New York, not for the weather, but yes, we'll share a drink. And honestly, all the good stories are a 2 drink minimum. So your audience is
Okay.
just not going to get to the good stuff unless they come to New York.
Come for the halal, stay for the drinks. It's a good way to end the show. So no, no,
All
it's
right.
it's been a blast, Jesse. Really appreciate it, and ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you in the future.